If you're wondering what this is Talkaoke. It's a pop-up talk show. Everyone's welcome. You can bring your food down. It's kind of like a come dine with me sort of thing today. I hope the food is good. I'm going to be finding out about that later on. But this is very simple. It's just about talking into this microphone about really whatever you want to talk about, and everyone's welcome. You can come and go as you please. My name is Mikey. Let's find out who we've got around the table. What's your name?
Andrea.
Second?
Andrea.
Andrea.
Andrea. Yeah.
And
Eva.
yeah. Oh, come.
Sorry.
Aidan. Yeah.
Clara.
Yeah.
Guillaume.
Neptune.
Neptune. And my name's Mikey. The whole way Talkaoke works, everyone's welcome to come and have a seat on the table of chat. But it's not up to me. The way this talk show works, it's up to you really to decide what you want to talk about. I don't have any views, opinions, anything. So that's why I do this job, really, to solicit opinions and ideas. So I don't really have anything to talk about. Has anyone got anything they want to kick off with? Start off with? Any thoughts, opinions, ideas?
What? Why me?
You look like you're about to open your mouth. You look like the most thinking person on the table, I suppose.
Okay. I think that I just enjoyed the talks that we participated now at Mozilla.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what have you been to anything interesting?
So I've been with data and exploitation.
Yeah.
So it's a presentation about how data is exploited and why we as individuals should cooperate.
Right.
To make sure that our data actually it's up to date and is the correct data that is collected.
Okay.
So I thought that was really, really interesting.
Okay, so we're talking about data being exploited. Is your data exploited? Come and talk about it on the table. Do people feel that their data is exploited? On this side, do you feel that your data is exploited?
Yeah, I feel my intelligence is exploited.
Your intelligence is exploited, I see. I mean, come and have a seat, come and get involved in this. I've forgotten everyone's names. Andrea, is that right? It's close enough. Andrea, Eva. I can say what's your name?
Jenny.
And Aidan, yeah, I remember you. And Neptune over here, what's your name?
Clara.
Clara, and we'll come back to you post noodles. Do you feel like your data your intelligence is exploited?
Kinda.
I mean, what's the kind of opposite of that, or the obverse of that, of it not being? Would you rather have your intelligence exploited or not exploited?
I'd rather have control when I'm on the internet.
Oh, so it's about control.
Yeah, you don't really have control like big companies have control.
Okay, so the issue is really, do people agree? What's your name again, sorry?
Guillaume.
People agree with what?
Speaking downstairs.
Hello, come and take a seat.
He was a speaker, and I wanted to ask you a question. What do you mean that exploitation of intelligence? Because I don't understand, and it's an interesting point, but I just don't understand.
I don't understand.
Come and take a seat. Come and get involved in this. I don't understand either. That's the great thing about Talkaoke.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Yeah, so I have a problem. I'm a social media alcoholic. When I'm on social media, I spend like way too long scrolling, and I end up like spending like 2 hours on the site, and I'm like, what the hell did I just do? And I think a lot of people have this problem, and when that happens, then your intelligence is exploited because you're basically shown some stuff you didn't really want to watch, but you were tricked into, this is moving, this is interesting, and then you don't even realize it.
Okay, so you're just scrolling through a lot of pointless. Let me just get a name because we've got a new face today. What's your name?
Valentina.
Valentina, welcome.
Nice name.
We got Andrea, we got Eva, we have got
Janie.
Janie, Aidan, Guillaume, and Neptune. Whoa, what's this? It's almost like the sea is in. I don't know what's happening. What are you going to say?
I think your point is very interesting, and I think we can compare this to. So I think we can divide this problem into two groups: people who are maybe not that involved in thinking on a daily basis, and I think this works like series for them in a TV. So they sit there and the series is going, and this is not necessarily what they want, but it keeps them going, so they don't think about other things, and maybe it can compare to intellectual exploitation.
Yeah.
And what you said as well, I catch myself as well on the like scrolling through, and sometimes you're just doing this before going sleep, and you then think, oh damn, maybe I should delete my Facebook for like a month or two because I stopped reading books because I scroll through things.
Yeah.
And I think the second group is for me better because sometimes they have a self-reflect, okay? But I think first group is really in trouble because those are people who later vote for radicalists, and you know they just people who don't want to think.
And which group are you part of? Would you say?
I swear I don't have a TV. I sometimes watch series and I really regret, but I try not to do it. I stop myself and force myself not to.
Yeah.
I force myself into reading classics. I force myself into watching non-commercial movies.
Yeah.
It comes difficult because if you have children, I have. You know, you are tired, and this is not necessarily what you want to do in the evening, right? But if you don't force yourself and work on yourself hard, you are falling in a trap of modern society sort of distraction.
Well, let's spread this out. I mean, do other people feel the same? Can they relate to this? Like, are there two groups of people, the reflective people and the ones that are just kind of sucked into the, I don't know what it is, this kind of the media flood, deluge? Valentina, do you feel like, what category? You're a radical?
I'm a radical, yes.
Okay, are you one of these people that's trying to radicalize the this kind of TV watching population?
No, I think it's everybody's choice to do whatever they want.
Okay. But
I should have a choice not to be on Facebook, not to be on Twitter, not to be on social media, not to watch TV if that's what I want, and still be able to fully participate in society and to express my views. And
what do you choose?
I choose to talk to people.
Yeah, just simply tell me. Well, you're in a perfect place in a way.
Yeah.
But so you don't choose to use any social media.
I don't.
And you don't? Do you choose to consume mass media?
Well, it's hard to get away from it, but no, I don't engage with it that much.
Okay, so it's all about choice in a way. Guillaume, do you sort of agree with that? Are we able to make these choices? You don't think so ever? Aidan, I want to bring you in because you've not said anything yet.
Sure.
So.
I mean, I really echo everything that has been said already. I agree with Valentina that it's about self-determination and being able to make decisions for one, to make decisions that one is comfortable with. I make the decision to engage in some social media platforms because I choose to, and because I can exercise a degree of control. But I'm certainly not using Facebook. I'm certainly not using some of these platforms, but I'm happy to engage with some because I make that informed decision myself.
Right.
Now, do I feel completely in control of the decisions, that third parties are making with my data? Not at all. And that is problematic. But I think that self-determination is a key principle here.
Okay, we've got a new face to the table. We're kind of talking about data and exploitation. A lot of people around the table feel exploited. People are big companies are sucking their data. For both Aidan and Guillaume, it's about control. They're not in control of this data. They're not even in control of their eyeballs because they find themselves 2 hours later having scrolled for 2 hours. Come and get involved in this. What's your name?
Well, funnily enough, we'll go for question mark at the moment.
Okay, you're just gonna go Anon. Can I call you Anon?
Anon, that'll do.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's your name?
Hi, I'm Mike.
Mike and Mikey. We got Neptune. We got Guillaume. We've got Aidan. We've got Janie. Is that right?
Jenny.
Jenny or Janie?
Jenny.
Okay, and then we got Eva, Andrea, and Valentina.
The moment my face is on the camera, I'd rather swap with this gentleman.
Okay, all right. Okay, we can just get the back of your head as long as you've had a haircut recently. I mean, I mean, we had a long conversation, and one of the things I should say is that if people don't want to be, we are filming this, but you do have the right to ask for this bit to be deleted if you don't want to be recorded for posterity forever. I don't mean forever, but I mean forever. Anyway,
there's a difference. There's a difference between now you're someone I have now met.
Yes.
There's a difference between you keep this thing because it's appropriate to you.
Yeah.
So that's no problem to me. But then if it gets sold to some corporation, it gets sent all over the place.
Yeah.
And then I get tagged in with some people who are seen as politically sensitive.
Yeah.
And before I know it, I'm unable to go places. I'm unable to,
Okay, so in a word, so there's a couple of things there. The one is about the selling of the data, but the other thing is about, and a few people have mentioned this, the control and where it goes, and we don't feel that we're in control, I suppose, of where it's going. I just want to say as well that we generally ascribe our videos as public domain, and you're all the owners of this, and therefore it can't be sold to the corporations. Although we will put it on YouTube if that's okay with everybody.
On the subject of control, obviously, so GDPR has put us legally and technically back in control, but it's actually so much bureaucracy you've got to go through to actually then go and GDPR request all of your data back. So what I think that probably needs to happen is having a way to automatically GDPR request loads of companies for all of your data, so that you can do stuff with it, or at least know where it all is.
So it should be a kind of smooth process that you should be able to track your data as it flows out, as it leaks out. It's Clara.
Yes, I actually disagree with that, because how do you actually verify that you are the person that you want to GDPR request your data from? Right, I think.
How do you know who you are?
Yeah, how does the company know that you are who you are, and how you do that verification when you make those requests? I think those safety procedures also need to be in place.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's the hard question, which absolutely needs solving for it to work. Basically.
Okay, so there's a question about being in control of your data. Maybe you don't even know who you are, and maybe you're like a multiplicity of identities. Are we even in control of our own real life data? You have face-to-face conversations. Are you in control of that data and what people think of you?
For me, privacy is about agency and autonomy over data, not about control, not something that a company designs as a tick box that I may or may not tick.
So explain that a little bit more, Valentina.
So it's true that technically we're not there when it comes to actually exercising the rights that have been offered by the GDPR. But we can get there, and there are a lot of smart people working on protocols and on open standards that will allow this to happen. But yes, at this point it's very bureaucratic, it's very heavy on the user.
But what do we actually want? This is what I'm trying to get at. What do we actually, what would it...
Oh, let me tell you what I want.
Yeah, go on.
So first, as a first step, I want data access APIs. So I want to exercise the right to access my data, to correct my data, to rectify it, to delete it, and to move it to another company via an API. It's something programmatic, and I can easily do that. Nobody...
Hang on a sec, Valentin. Let me get a final thought from you guys before you go. But you finish your point.
And then... Second point, I want interoperable APIs. So I want I want my data to be transferred from a company to another if I choose to, very easily, seamlessly. So like a one-click thing. And on a more adventurous level, I think we need to explore more details here. But I would like to see if it's a good thing for us if we separate the data layer from the service layer.
Right.
So that Facebook and Twitter and all these companies do not both host the data, collect the data, exploit the data, and have everything.
Almost like a separation of... we've lost Guillaume. I've lost half the table. I don't know, maybe that point was a bit too complex there, Valentina. But it is a good point. We need this separation maybe between the data farmers and the service providers and the Aidan, final thought?
Yeah, I can respond to that on behalf of everyone, I suppose.
Okay.
We echo everything that Valentina said, and I think the principle of data portability in particular is really important.
Of data portability?
Yeah, so that you should be able to move your data from one service or to another with relative ease. I think that's a good point that Valentina raises.
Okay, so data portability, yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, right. So where do we go from this? Is everybody going to go now that Guillaume's gone?
We need to.
Okay, where are we off to?
Replaced by someone else. I'm hunting for another event.
Oh, don't worry. That's my job. We've got these two here. It's my job to bring people in, keep these ideas going. But we need a final thought from you guys before you go. Any final thought? What's the way forward?
I don't know. I think it's very complicated because we speak for ourselves and we are like thinking people who studied, came here and talk. And you have a massive amount of people who don't. I don't know. I don't want to say they don't think. I think it's not the right way of who were. Not privileged in terms of getting education and development, and I think it's very easy to say we should have access to data and blah blah blah. But what with this, and this is like what 10% of people living on the earth, you know, and what with all of this rest who wouldn't know where to look for it, who wouldn't even know they are exploited. Even though they are using internet, they just don't maybe even think about this because they think it's their choice not to think about this, but in reality it's not their choice because they were programmed by the way how the world is going to do this. And I think it's very important to, first of all, when we had a talk about ethics and putting ethics into AI, I think we need to find a way of putting more people dealing with ethics around, so companies who are software developers have someone to access who they can consult, not only like one person, you know?
Eva, I just need to get a final thought from Andrea, because she's shaping up to leave.
Like the way forward, I think, is each one of us to make some effort and actually get informed and educated for what is happening around us, and try to actually get involved in everything.
But
because
can you force people to be educated? How do you encourage people?
You can't, but at the end of the day, it's about you protecting yourself, right? So if it's not coming from us, then to whom we should expect to take care of us? So I think each one of us should have the courage and actually get involved in this and have like a say towards this.
Okay, Valentina?
The GDPR is actually about privacy by design and by default, not about informed consent. So I guess if we manage to efficiently enforce this, I think we're in a much better place, and this lowers the responsibility on the user of being knowledgeable and educated about this.
You believe more in just like almost a right that's protected rather than the user being more educated and more informed?
Yeah, I think it should be privacy first approach instead of other mechanisms.
I'm just interested in Eva's point that she wants to see people more educated and more informed, but do those people want to be more educated and informed? Do they actually want to be involved in this discussion? Mike?
I think that if you make it easier for people and you reduce the cognitive load required to engage, then more people will engage. So that's why, I think. So I'm working with a few university friends to try to build some technology which empowers people by making it simpler and easier to get your data back by GDPR requesting. So make an automated system where you fill in one form and you try and prove your identity in one place, and then you can send that out to loads of other people and get them to give you your data back and also get them to delete it where you want it. And in order to do that, then you need to know what your data says, where it is, and so then you actually need a visualization or an analytics layer as well, where only you get to see the results of that, but you can then understand where all of your data is in a much simpler way rather than scraping through JSONs.
It's a kind of engineering question of actually how to properly visualize the kind of spread of your data and what's happening, and it's actually something you could design. And on?
The issues over the privacy and what is appropriate and what sort of things you need to keep to yourself, etc. They seem to froth and change with incredible incredibly, endlessly. Thomas Jefferson and his lot have been thinking about this way back. Because they cared a great deal about, and they were just as smart, and the issues changed just as much. He simply said that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance.
Right. Is that what Thomas Jefferson said?
It has often been quoted to him. I believe it may have been somebody else, but he was involved. It makes a lot of sense, actually. So, unfortunately, there are no pat answers. There's no.
I mean, there's just this question from Eva about whether people have actually got the sort of, are thinking enough or informed enough to be vigilant, like you say, and whether they've got the
education.
Is it about education? Is it about an attitude of vigilance?
Like, please come.
Thank you.
Anyway, I mean, this is just the beginning of this conversation that will go on all day, and we'll cover a lot of subjects, I'm sure. Eva?
Of course. Sure, why not? I think we have problems on many layers. I think simplifying things is one of the very important ones. So it needs to be quite clear where you look for it, how you check, because nobody is gonna spend, hours to read terms and conditions. Nobody wants to do those things. It needs to be very straightforward.
Do you read through the terms?
Of course not. I am a lawyer and I don't read terms and conditions. Come on, of course, because it's every time you click on a website, it asks you, terms and conditions. Come on.
Pages.
It's too much, and the word is fast. You want to read news, be updated. You just don't do those things. So I agree, but I would be curious. How do you, is it a startup you have, or? And what do you do in the startup?
Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, this idea of, could you have an artificial intelligence that would read through the terms and conditions for you to give you a bit of take a bit of time off of you?
So the current plan is to help people reclaim their data by helping them automate GDPR requests and then being able to choose in those requests where that data gets sent. Right. So do you want it sent to your email, or do you want it sent to a secure somewhere on the cloud? Basically make your choices in one place, and then you can get all of it and you can understand where it all is, because I think the first step to controlling anything is understanding it. And if you don't understand your data, where it all is and why it matters, then you won't be able to control it. And then ideally we would sort of have something which flags up security issues, like your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, the road you grew up on being in 10, 15 places online, and then sort of do the same process again, but to delete the data. So the same automated GDPR request process, you can then say, no, I want to delete this, and bang, an email's been sent saying delete this data on my behalf. And it's been sent to every company which has that data, apart from maybe your bank, who you say, okay, it's okay if they have my date of birth. It's kind of like, I think everyone needs a sort of a data lawyer, but the thing is that that's far too expensive. So if you start having some kind of automated data lawyer combined with a bit of a data bank.
So everyone needs a robot lawyer, basically.
I think everyone needs a robot lawyer, and I think that it can be simple to start with and just be solve the problem in one place and scale it through technology.
Right.
So basically, you're a lawyer.
Would you like a robot lawyer to help you out as a lawyer?
Depends what the question, I think lawyers are gonna be automated, like tax lawyers will be automated, accountants, everyone will be automated to an extent. I don't know what's the extent, because obviously I don't know how far algorithm is gonna go in 5 to 10 years. I just don't know. I'm trying to study computer science, but I can't study this to this extent, obviously. I can do basics, like how to do the, I don't know, Mario, yellow word like CS50, so I don't know, I think it's gonna be very useful to have one, because nobody will want to pay for those things.
Okay.
Especially that soon nobody will have job, because we will be replaced by computers. But I don't know.
With all this,
maybe we'll just all be data generators.
Our job will be just to generate.
Just to live, and then as we live,
data as possible.
Data gets generated. So basically, the other thing about controlling your data is using it. So if you wanted to sort of contribute your data into a data collective where it's anonymized and aggregated, then you could open up the data which is locked in all the companies which currently store it, and then allow it to be used for research for free. and you could select that as what you are happy with that being used for, and then it would be collectivized into a pool, which is for free
like
research.
Giving your body for research, but you're giving your data for
exactly.
research. Yeah.
And the thing is that by giving, so you would anonymize it so it's not connected to you, and it would be like subsetted given whatever research is happening to minimize data, because that's a really key principle, to minimize the amount of data which goes places. And then you could basically just choose how to use your data in any way that you like, and collectivize it, or just use it for like creating a personal AI for yourself or anything like this.
Is it really possible?
Is it an app you are developing? Yeah, I'll sit down here. Is it an app you are developing? What is it gonna be in terms of like physical, you know?
Yeah. So I suppose like
I need to get more people to join. Otherwise,
guys, come join this conversation. It's kind of fun.
Come and have a seat. Yes.
So basically, currently it would be a sort of web app, and it would literally be something where you'd fill in the necessary things to request your data back from wherever it is, or you could not do any of that if you didn't want to send people more stuff, and you know where your data is, and we would give like quick tutorials on how to download it from Facebook and from Google. Then what you'd do is you could either like anonymize it on your own computer, you could download the app and run it on your own computer, so that like that's like don't trust us. And then.
But I mean, can I just ask you, are people really that interested in their data? Isn't it like
not yet
a byproduct?
This is what I
a kind of like
You need to educate people, and I think this is a social work to make people aware about all of the problems we are talking about today, because I think it's only very small percentage of society that is really interested at the moment, but also we are only going into the era of digitalization, and it's gonna be a problem. Maybe it's not such a big problem yet, but
problems being.
Can't you see the problem with the fact that you are being like invigilated and influenced on every step? Like you log into every website and you have adverts everywhere. Everyone seems to, even if you talk, if you speak to your partner saying, "I would like to have a baby," let's say, right? I have a baby, but let's say. And suddenly you get on Facebook and you see, nappies advertised. How from the conversation, but maybe you didn't talk to anyone about children, but just an example how this information, when you have a conversation and your phone is next to you, suddenly gets recorded. Like, are you not worried? I'm worried.
Okay, what are you worried about? Come and have a seat, come and get involved in this. Are you worried about your data being sucked, being give us 2 minutes. 2 minutes. There's no time limit here. Go on, say again.
Well, it was just off topic, offline. We can go back to online ones.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, is it that much of a problem if you get advertised nappies? I mean, does it really make them?
It's not the nappies. It's just the fact that every decision that you make is slightly manipulated by the fact that you get proposed and shown lots of advertising. And advertising is fine, but it's like if you're in control of it, it's fine. If you're not in control of it and therefore you're being manipulated without your consent and knowledge, then it's not fine.
What would the difference be if you're in control? What would it look like if you're in control of it more?
It could look like you could have a dashboard where you would select that yes or no to be targeted adverts based on different types of data, or based on different types of companies or entities who are advertising to you, or you could control what sorts of topics you're happy to be advertised to about. Like you could say no to gambling, no to alcohol, no to tobacco, for example. Right. Or you could say I don't care, just do anything.
No to nappies as well.
And no to nappies. Yeah. I don't want to.
I don't want any of that nappy adverts.
The other thing is that if you could then reject being advertised to, then people would potentially pay you for the privilege of advertising to you,
right?
So that it's not just Google and Facebook getting all of the being the middlemen. It's not them who are the middlemen to advertising to you, and so it's not them who just sift away the billions of pounds and dollars. So that's an important part of it, I think.
Okay.
I think it's not even the problem you are being advertised to or manipulated.
Yeah.
I think the problem is, for me, it's scary that someone somewhere sits there and I speak to my partner thinking it's a private conversation, and it's not bloody private conversation.
So, I mean, we're going back to this issue that
like often it's not the fact that the conversation is recorded, it's the fact that all the other data which is out there, loads and loads of it, is able to predict once a month or something the exact thing you talked about that day and advertise to you for it, even if they haven't
so what so they're kind of saying, if you have a conversation at about 10:20 with your partner, it's probably going to be about children or something like that.
It might be that. Or at this exact age, in this location, your friends are searching nappies, and we know that you're friends with them. And so if your friends are searching nappies, that might mean that you're also considering it because it's a topic in your group. And basically, like it's a survivor bias where you only see the times when it works. You don't see the times when you talked about something and you didn't have it advertised to you. And so when it happens, you're like, whoa, what the hell? Like they're listening to me.
So you talk about maybe 100 different subjects a day.
Yeah. And you do that for a month.
It would be weird if suddenly we checked our social media and suddenly we're being sold all kinds of like data protection apps.
Well, would it be weird because we're at Mozilla Festival? We've probably clicked attending somewhere, so there will be, and for most of us there will be some data about us saying that we're at Mozilla Festival.
Guy maybe, but
maybe not him because he's not showing anything. But there's definitely lots of information about me that I'm attending this festival right now.
Come and have a seat on the table of chat. We have got Mike, we've got Eva. What's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah and Mikey. Are you worried about your data being exploited, being used to sell you stuff? Have you ever had a conversation talked about something really obscure, like, I don't know, nappies, for example, and then suddenly you're being advertised this, and are you worried about this kind of thing? That's what we're talking about at the moment. Is it a thing for you, Sarah?
Well, I guess I am worried about it, but it's like the back and forth of, is it great because it's things that I'm actually interested in, or is it awful because they're listening, or who's they, you know?
Yeah, who are these people? Because this is the thing, a lot of people are feeling like their data is being exploited, but how? It just seems like it's about being sold things that you're already talking about. Which is uncomfortable and uncanny for us. Come and have a seat. Come and get involved in this. We got Sarah, we got Eva, we got Mike.
I just think it's really just about freedom is like the most important feeling in the sense that you want to be able to feel like what you do is what you want to do.
So it's more of a feeling than a sort of.
No, it's a moral imperative just to be a bit. I don't know. Anyway, so like if you're not free to make your own decisions and to control what you get, what you see every day, and the things which get shown to you, then that's the problem, and that's a valuable thing in and of itself. Even if they're showing me what I want to see anyway, if I can't stop them from showing me stuff, or if I can't stop who can show me stuff where, then I'm not in control and I'm not free, and I feel like somebody else is trying to run my life.
Okay, so I'm going to pick up. I know it's slightly paraphrasing you and distorting, but I like this idea of freedom as a feeling, rather than a set of parameters.
Freedom exists or it doesn't exist. It's not. For the feeling matters, but the truth of whether or not you have control is more important.
Feeling versus. This is why you need to educate people, because they need to understand to what extent their freedom doesn't exist. Because it's important for us, because we are human beings.
Yeah.
We are not like.
Are you just saying that because you're a lawyer?
No, because I am not actually a lawyer dealing with those things, really. Yeah. To an extent, maybe, but a different extent.
So we've got to be factually free as well as feeling free, both of those things. Sarah, any views on this? Do you feel free?
I guess it depends on I don't know. No.
No, you don't. But especially on this table when people are forcing you to answer.
Great point.
Do you feel free, Mike?
I feel like I can try and become more free, and I feel like I could. I feel like currently being free comes at too high a cost. So if you want to just delete yourself from everywhere and not be advertised to, you actually lose out on loads and loads of things. And so that's my current issue. That I'm not free, but I am choosing to be not free because the costs of being free right now are so high. Because you've got to delete yourself from everywhere. You've got to not get rubbish ads. Basically, your choice between targeted or rubbish ads.
So you've kind of sacrificed a bit of freedom for the sake of being connected. Convenience. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it looks like I've lost everybody now. Got too heavy too soon. But hang on a sec, Mike, Eva, Sarah got away. But final thoughts.
I feel like we said enough.
So this is all going to be used to sell you.
I wish you luck with the further discussion and getting more people. It's very interesting. Thank you for.
Thank you. Well, we're here all day.
The route to controlling your data and your life online is about some people trying to make it easier for you to do so, because currently it's too hard and it comes at too high a cost. The main and people will become more educated when it becomes easier. So I think that the biggest thing is to reduce the cognitive load required to control yourself online and to get all your data back and to use it how you want. That's the thing. Like, make it easier, and that's what I hope everyone here is at this festival is kind of trying to do. Yeah, the company's called Ethi, ETHI. The website is ethi.me. Right. So ethi.me, and yeah, like we're at the stage where I've sent out about 450 GDPR requests, and I did it in about 10 minutes once we'd set up the system. Wow. And we are seeing what comes back, and we're going to try and analyze what comes back so we can then automate the process of engaging with hundreds and hundreds of companies on people's behalf. Once we've done that, we want to scale.
Can you just pass me that blue cloth, because I spilt my coffee? Thanks very much. It looks like we're going to take a natural break, but we will be back. Some very pertinent questions here. I have to say, thank you, Mike. I like the idea of, I know it's not your thing, but I like the idea of freedom as a feeling.
Yeah, it's a feeling
and the truth. Yeah. And we're ready to record because we've got people, we've got punters, we're starting to grow a conversation. This Talkaoke table is designed for the average white male middle class person, and that's the world, according to 99% the podcast, and Jasmine. What's it?
99% invisible.
99% invisible. Is that the case? Is our world designed for the average white man? I'm going to add middle. You never said middle class, but I'm going to add middle class. But you think middle class as well?
Middle class as well.
Yeah. I mean, do we agree on this side? Was this meal designed for the average white middle class person, or was it? Was there a wider view? What do you think, Conrad?
Well, I think society's changing. I think there's more awareness around this topic.
Okay, so at least we're aware about it a little more. What do you think, Anusha?
About the food?
Well, a bit, yeah. Is it designed for the average white man? Has it got a more diverse kind of design ethic?
We're in a fairly progressive, inclusive space, so the food is a little bit more designed for different perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, and what about the world in general? Moving away from the food, like this Talkaoke table, it's 70 centimeters high. It's kind of like 1.88 meters in width, which I suppose is down to the kind of like level of kind of facial interaction. You know, talking about design, the idea of this table can't really be much bigger because then people are too far away from each other. But is that designed with the parameters of the average white male rather than somebody younger, somebody older, different genders? Would it be designed differently? And is the world designed for these people? This is the question on the table. Never mind the data sets, which are all the data sets. This is what Stefan's talk was about. All the data sets are kind of with that in mind as well. Yeah,
they're basically biased.
It's a bias. Yeah. Oh, is that for me? Thank you. Well, come and join the conversation as well. But now I'm in a difficult situation because I'm trying to host a conversation with this meal intended for the average white man in front of me, and obviously it's tempting, as I'm, I guess, quite average.
Are you the average white man?
Well, this is a good question. I'm going to turn that question around to. Do you feel like you're the average white man? Are you?
No, I don't think so.
And what way are you outside of the mean?
As I said, I think there's a growing awareness around this topic, and
Okay, well, I'm going to come. That's a tough one. I'm going to go over here. Do you think? I mean, how does this problem present itself? How does it actually?
I mean, first of all, the question
question about is anybody here the average white man?
Yeah.
I think that by dint of being at Mozilla Festival, you are probably
escaping the norm a
little bit because if nothing else, even if physiologically you are the average white man, you are probably mentally and politically and all of that slightly more left-wing, slightly more open-minded, and think a bit more about the world around you than a lot of people.
Okay, so
I think, and I might be being a terrible snob, but there we go. I'm a terrible snob.
Okay, so
you're in hysterics.
Are we more snobbish here at Mozilla Fest than the average white man? We're talking about. We've got a new face at the table, so we have got Stefan, we've got Conrad, Anusha, and we've got Jasmine over here. My name's Mikey. What's your name?
I'm Shrishtika. It's very difficult. Shrishtika.
Shrishtika.
Yeah.
Shrishtika. Okay, so at the moment what we're talking about is the world designed for the average white man, and what is that?
No comments.
No comment. Okay. Because basically, maybe we should just come back to Stefan because it's kind of like your thing. But it's more Stefan's thing's more about data. Because maybe you should just explain. Now we've got a bigger audience. Explain your presentation.
Basically, since we are what we eat, also if you feed the algorithms with biased data set, then also the results will be biased.
Okay, so tell us a bit. Just go back. Cause not everyone was here. Go back and just explain very basically what your talk was about.
Okay, so. Let's say you want to predict skin cancer. You are collecting images of moles from people. And the large majority of the skin is, of course, white or Caucasian or pink look like.
So then it's hard to find the skin cancers on
people that have a different skin color, for example.
Okay. And that's just one example of how the data sets tend to be biased. And it goes back to Jasmine's thing that is the world actually designed for this, this idea of a norm, but it's just one particular type of person.
And I wonder, do you have any ideas of how to combat that bias, specifically in the skin cancer example that you gave?
Yeah, of course, it will take a long time to have an actual conversation on this, but to be very short...
We've got all the time in the world.
You can try to collect more data, but being careful that you're not introducing noise, because otherwise it's harder to deal with variability. Right? So you don't want to include data that are not needed, but you want to include more data anyway. So that's the key and the first point. The second point is that how do you collect that and how do you make it available to scientists? That's another problem because you want to have anonymized data, but also you want to have enough information to predict the disease. So you have to have a conversation about which variables you can include and not include into your data set. Otherwise, you may be able to recognize people, for example.
Okay. I mean, if someone's got like a skin cancer on their face, how do you anonymize that because it's their face?
Well, I mean, that depends, of course, on the size, but usually it's not as big like that you need the whole face. Usually you need just a small skin patch. Yes.
I mean, I guess I was kind of coming on to widening out the point that can we really anonymize the data? Can we, and does it then lose its sort of real meaning if we don't know the facts about that person? Then we just assume that they're the average white guy. Come and have a seat. Are you the average white man?
Yes.
Because what we're talking about is this.
How could you tell?
It's just a question. It's just it's just that I didn't know. I'm open-minded about this. It's the
I'm so average it hurts.
Yeah. Okay. Painfully average.
Painfully average person.
Okay. So we've got Stefan, we've got Conrad, we've got Anusha, we've got Jasmine. My name's Mikey. What's your name?
My name is Ville.
Ville. Okay, Ville.
Yes.
So basically what we're talking about is how do we actually, everything is kind of biased towards, it's not like the norm, and I think this is important. It's just like, would you say it's the norm? It's not the norm, is it? But all the data that we have about things like, you're talking mostly about medical data, is based on a middle-aged, middle-class white man, and so therefore it's not actually relevant for the wider world. And design is like that as well. So how do we widen that up? Stefan just says get more good quality data from a wider source, but is it that simple? Is it just about awareness? Oh, I nearly put my hand in my lunch there. Go on. What do you think, Ville?
Actually, in my company, I'm a radio producer, and we just, I'm from Finland, and we just recently, I think we've had it for 3 months, we have like put into a Google Sheet the name and the assumed gender of every person who we have on the air, on TV, or in the like internet news. We are putting all of them down by the assumed gender, so that tells us whether there's bias or not in there, which we are not unaware bias. I have never picked like the people whom I interview. I've never picked them by like the gender or anything. I like to think I have been picking them by what they know, what's their expertise, but that's going to show the possible bias there. So being aware is one thing, but how do we act upon the results or the knowledge is another thing.
I mean, what did you find? Did you find that there was a bias, or
so far we have found that there's a 60-40 bias towards pale, male, and stale.
Yeah, okay, pale, male, and stale. Okay, okay. So is this table getting a little bit pale, male, and stale? Come and join. Being aware is one thing, says Ville, but what's the next step? How do you actually... I mean, I know that you're bringing up the subject, Stefan, but I think all you said is let's just get a wider data set, but it seems like it's not that easy. It's not that easy, I don't think.
I didn't say that. I said you should have data from more people, but also you should be careful about not introducing noise into your data set, which is key. So you have this sort of trade-off.
Yeah.
And it's a huge conversation with the population, with the doctors, and with the scientists.
Yeah. I mean, if the doctors and the scientists are mostly pale, male, and stale, isn't it inevitable that you're going to get a bias when, when Ville's doing his news? Isn't it inevitable that you will have more people that are pale, male, and stale? Well, just because the society is biased? Let me come to...
Well, I mean, it's inevitable that would be the first thought, but the thing of, what do you do once you've created awareness of it?
Yeah.
I think the point of creating the awareness about it is so that it's not unconscious bias anymore.
Yeah.
Because by putting it from your unconscious into your conscious, you can, on a kind of individual case-by-case basis...
Jasmine, let me get final thought from these guys before they go.
Change it. That's the end of the sentence.
Final thought? You're not going? You are going? Okay, final thought. Is it, as Jasmine says, just once it's a come and get involved in this. Are you pale, male, and stale? Pale, male, stale. That's what we're talking about now. Anyway, final thought, Conrad. Is it just a question of turning an unconscious bias into a conscious bias and then deal with it from there, as Jasmine says?
Probably more difficult than that.
Yeah, more difficult. Okay. Anusha?
I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. I mean, is there anything we can do apart from just be this awareness that people are talking about and they're on the table, having the discussion, and we're having it here?
One thing I'll say is that I think it's important to compare against whatever there was before, whatever decision-making system existed before the algorithm.
So in a way, we need to have a kind of historical perspective on this.
Right, because there might be biases today, but they might be lesser than what was there before when humans were making decisions.
Yeah.
And that could sometimes be the case.
Okay, so we have to have that sense of, okay, there is a bias, but is the bias changing? Is it changing for the better maybe? Or are we getting this wider data set that Stefan absolutely longs for?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to look at the data that's being got and analyse it and see.
Yeah. I don't know, personally, I feel like I'm getting more stale, not less stale, but anyway, that's me personally, more pale, more male, more stale. But, maybe it's time for me to sort of like shuffle off and get somebody else to do this job. I don't know. What do people think?
Probably.
Ville.
Well, like the more the merrier, I say, and by more I mean like more diverse. There's diversity never hurt anybody. I like to say that. Like what's the harm in pointing out that hey, you're all male, you're all plus 40, you're all like heterosexual, and hey, you're what next? Hey, you all have dogs. Hey, you all got family. You all live in a house. You all drive lawnmowers. Like that. So maybe I'm leaving that to data scientists, but my answer would be like deliberately take the opposite, gather data from the young female assumed people with no children, and then compare the data and make it weigh it so that according to your best knowledge.
Okay, so can you? Well, that's another thing. Can you weigh the data on your more? I mean, certainly when it comes to Talkaoke, if we have a very homogenous audience around the table, then you don't necessarily get as good a conversation if you have a diverse audience. So I think that definitely when it comes to having a conversation, diversity is absolutely key. But what about this question about weighting the data, weighting the so that the more diverse data could have a stronger weight? I don't know. I'm not a data person. Come and join this table. We're talking. Yes, you can eat on the table. Yes, and you come and join in. At the moment, we're talking without a risk of being repetitive. We've got Stefan, we've got Villa, and we've got Jasmine and Mikey.
Point before I go. I don't think that you can force diversity. Look at how hard you've been working to try and get people who aren't
this person,
the average white male, to come along and join in this conversation.
And all I've got so far is Villa. I've got Pradeep, and we've got, what's your name?
Devansh.
Okay.
And just that a lot of I think a lot of the issue with this with surveys and things like that, and things that gather data, is when they are opt-in. I think you need to make them opt-out,
right?
Which would help with the diversity, because if they were opt-out, then you would get all the people who wouldn't necessarily volunteer that information voluntarily.
Okay, so you've got to be a bit more,
forceful with that. Yes. Anyway,
diverse data. Thank you, Jasmine.
Good conversation.
Enjoy. Hopefully, you'll get the shits and giggles that you wanted from Mozfest. What's your name again? Sorry.
Devansh.
Devansh.
Yes.
At the moment, we're talking about this question that Stefan brought. Come and join in. It's about diversity. We're lacking a little bit of diversity when it comes to data sets, and everything seems to be designed for the average white male. And how do we actually get a more diverse set of data and get opinions, get perspectives, but also medical data from like a wider group of people? We've got a new face at the table. What's your name?
Sorry?
What's your name?
Meg.
Meg.
Yes.
Mikey, what's again?
Devansh.
And Pradeep. And Villa and Stefan, and I'm Mikey. Did you get the sum up that I just said?
Yes.
Okay, so anyone want to chip in, any of the new faces? Do you feel like, I mean, I'm like the stale male pale person representative from England, from the southeast of England. Is everything kind of designed for me, from my ease of use? So, the right height, the right flavour, everything. And I happen to notice that you three on this side are not stale male pale. So, I mean, do you feel a difference? Do you feel like that things are designed that way, or is it just me and Villa worried about this problem that doesn't exist? What do you think on this side? Yeah.
What kind of problem? The diversity problem, or?
Well, I mean, Stefan was talking about he's into data, and when it comes to medical data, it's all from people like me.
Yeah.
So things like skin cancer, the way to recognise it, the computer algorithm can recognise the skin cancer. Is that right? But recognises it on someone like me, and then a mole looks different on the darker skin.
So what I think is that many people are not researching on the particular field, you know, so that is why there's a lack of data and data sets, and that is why what happens, there's not much of an inclusion into the field when it comes to medical, and there's another diverse fields like architecture. Like I have a session on architecture today, so so I've also figured out that there is a lack of data set into that field, because many people are not working for that field. They are not inclusive of the field when it comes to AI. People are researching on stuff like technology, and sometimes only technology, AI, what can be done around technology, but not other fields like medical, architecture.
Okay, so I guess you've got pure AI, but then you've got all sorts of fields of knowledge that kind of intersect with each other. Meg, have you got a view on this?
What's the question?
That's not really a question. I mean, someone come up with a question.
Maybe that's the same idea, but I'm in the health field, and we have a diversity problem on data collection.
Yeah.
Because the participants are not diverse.
Yeah.
But we also have a problem on the researcher side. We don't have a diverse enough researcher pool who is in the room standing up asking these questions when they come up.
Yeah.
So it's a two-sided problem. It's just not that we don't have enough diverse participants. We don't have enough diverse researchers.
Yeah. But I mean, where are all these other sort of like people? Where are these diverse people? Why are they not coming forward? Pradeep, have you got anything?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The internet and the technology, it is a great labeler. It has made people right from one corner to the other globally a place where we can integrate with everyone.
Yeah.
But it has also posed a lot of threat also to our individuality and privacy.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is to think how this privacy can be maintained.
Yeah.
On internet. That is a very important issue.
Yeah, okay, so there's a question of privacy, but if you're trying to sort of, in a way... Oh, Stefan, before you go, final thought. Come on, you started all of this. You're responsible for all of this. Give us a final thought.
On what?
On this question about, like, how do we open the door to a more diverse group of people, a more diverse group participating? I mean, it's a... Okay, that's your first and final thought.
Yeah, because you're collecting data through some tools.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that more diverse people have access to those tools that you collected data from. Because if they don't have access to those tools, then of course you will never get. Even if you say anyone is welcome, then if you don't have the tools, then
what sort of tools are we talking about?
Well, for example, a stable internet connection. If you want to make surveys, that's like the most simple thing. So if you want data from African population and that their gigabytes are very, very expensive compared to ours, then of course you may say, oh, just fill out this Google form. But if they struggle to have access to it, then of course they will never be in.
Yeah. And they're more likely gonna use the precious gigabytes for other things rather than filling out a survey. Okay, so is that a question then that we need to have, access to data as a kind of right? Will that improve our diversity if people have got this, this wider access to the internet? As Pradeep says, the internet itself is this leveler, so maybe also the access to it should be kind of open to everybody. Would that actually help this diversity question?
It could.
Yeah.
I mean, it could help, but I also think there's a trust problem, right? We have a trust issue.
Yeah.
Even if you give somebody access, they might not understand it.
Yeah.
And they can't take action on something they don't understand.
Right.
And so I think trust and education are two important pieces of that.
So trust actually also comes with understanding, because if you don't know what are you a medical researcher? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. So you need people to trust you before they start talking about what their medical symptoms are and stuff like that, I suppose. So trust, understanding, all of these things kind of play into this. But come, Abdul, come and join us. This is quite an important question. 2 minutes. We're talking about this question of diversity. What is preventing us getting a more diverse data set? Everything's designed for the average white man, like Villa. Come and join, and not for unicorns, for example. But how do we actually get things get a more diverse group? Is it about opening up access, or is it about trust, as Meg says? Come 2 minutes, because you work for Mozilla, so this is a hot subject for you. But let me just quickly come.
It is not about it is subjective, So people are not asking diverse questions because they are not questioning the day-to-day basis things. Because like for example, whenever I'm searching through my Instagram feed or whatever, I start questioning things. So that is how people get diverse. Start noticing things. Start noticing the problems actually. The trust comes afterwards. Once you start researching into that field, and then you realize that trust is the problem. Or
so most people don't even notice the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We've got a new face. What's your name?
Yeah, this is Bhuvna from India.
Okay. And we've got Abdul over here. He's been on the table already. So.
I've seen his
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this question about how do we get a more diverse internet, I suppose, a more diverse set of data, design, algorithms, whatever it is, that work with not the average white male assumes, but a wider group.
Okay. In terms of internet governance and stuff?
Well, we were talking about medical, actually, but it could be anything, It could, Avila is a radio presenter, and he's finding that the people that he interviews is more often than not, in his words, pale male stale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because it's hard. It's a bias that he's noticed, but it's hard to actually move away from that.
Right. So I do understand this, and I basically wrangling openness space here today.
Yeah.
So we do keep this in mind, like bringing in diverse groups to represent, what is the problem with the internet that is obstructing them from, whether it is with the government politics, or is it like what's the barrier that's like stopping them from, getting into the access of the internet, and we do have some cool ideas.
What is the problem? Is it mostly about money, as somebody else said, that it's about having the tools, just literally the access, or is it about trust?
Yeah. So having been coming from India, I would say it's like mostly the government, the politics.
Right. Okay, so there's a political side as well. Abdul, let me...
I think it will depend a lot, depending on context. It depends on who we want on board. But basically, in many places, it will be about access, infrastructure. So the basic infrastructure is not there.
Yeah.
So the cost will be an issue. I'm originally from Mali.
Right.
And in Mali, only about 20% of people have access to internet. So now with the mobile data accessibility become better, but still it's very costly for people to access internet. So that excludes most of them. And then you have also literacy.
Yeah.
So literacy, like in Mali, for instance, you have only 30% of people who are literate. So the 70% will feel very intimidated in being online.
Right.
So all these are factors that contribute, and then government policy will also be something. Government vision to build the infrastructure to make sure people are online, and sometimes they're also scared of people being online because it can threaten them politically. So when people use, we've seen internet shutdown in many countries because government was scared about how people are using internet to criticize them or to be more aware of things that are going on. So all these are issues that eventually we need to add. And language is also one other issue.
Yeah.
So today English is a language of internet. And as I said, originally from Mali, it's a francophone country officially, but we have, again, only 20 to 30% of people who speak French.
Right.
And we have a diversity of language in the country. One man is spoken by 50%, but then you have the over 50% who are would also be excluded. So you have language exclusion, you have political exclusion, you have economical exclusion. So working on all this would make internet more diverse.
Okay, so there's a huge number of different barriers, I guess, to access and to collecting data.
Let me give my final thoughts. I have to go.
Yeah, well,
So diversity is a very good. It's among the best solutions. This awareness is one of the best solutions into building diversity because.
But what is it awareness of?
awareness of our lack of our skills, lack of our knowledge.
Right.
When you know that you don't know, it's like a gateway to like improvement. I think and that's the only way that we can learn is to learn about ourselves and what we are, what we might be doing, the flaws of what we might be doing now. So I think it's a problem that will eventually solve itself, but like in means of like medical data collecting, we are on the very like starting point, like when we're thinking about the data available largely and being even in electric, even in like online form, like. For example, medical data in Finland, as in many other countries also, it's been collected manually. It's like in these binders and like files in cabinets. And only in like last 10 years, it's been come available to me online with like for me to observe there. And when I changed jobs from and my like job medical provider changes, I only tick a box and they can access it. Before I would have had to go with the binder to the new like medical station. It's like we are constantly learning about this new technology and slowly improving ourselves to better be able to learn. So I think this discussion is already very important, but as we recognize that we are faulty.
Okay, I mean, I really like that. To know what we don't know is like the first step. Do we agree with that on the table? It's about knowing what we don't know.
Yeah. So and also mostly into this particular kind of problem, there's like I mean the diversity of the gender is like very sensitive, and also
Thank you, Ville.
So the diversity with in perspective of gender, which is like even more like when it comes to third world countries, it's like very much underrepresented, and the main thing is that there's a fear of like starting through, like I mean, what's there in the internet? That's something that's not. I've been to places where women have been told, this is not secure place for you. Like when you get exposed to more knowledge, so you'll be suppressed down to not accessing much of knowledge. And also I've been like doing research with the Wikimedia communities in India. So wherein the representation of the women, like to identify them as women, is like very less. They do not identify as a female or like any other gender. So that's because there's a fear in them to expose, and also it's like there's so much of unwelcoming groups that you have to face if you're going to identify.
So in a way, so people that are online who are female are not necessarily declaring their gender.
Yes.
Because of this kind of sense of a prejudice against them when they go online.
True. So that's like a great barrier in my perspective. So it's like,
I mean, it's interesting. We seem to be just uncovering more and more problems and reasons why this is not happening. But as Vida said, it's about knowing what we don't know, and it's a starting point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mick?
I have to go to my
that's good because I need to eat this lunch.
I will say the last piece is when we have these different, sometimes marginalized groups, they start to form their own networks, and they end up becoming siloed in their own way, so and to protect themselves as protection. But there's a real strength in having the network effect. So when we talk about data transparency, when we talk about standards, that can translate into these other networks that can come together and actually do that education and outreach in a community.
I mean, it's sort of come to me that, is it about, in a way, when we're saying that there's this lack of diversity, is it because the male stale pale men have got their network already and they want the diversity in their network rather than other networks starting themselves? And maybe, it's also a question of perspective that actually there are other networks out there that are kind of just doing their thing.
And pretty strong.
And they are
getting stronger by the day.
And it's actually about connecting with those networks rather than trying to extend the network of power of the white middle class male.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I guess that's a final thought.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. We'll be back later. Who knows what we'll be talking about? I'm just going to quickly swallow this lunch. Thanks everyone so far. Meg, can you just hit the red button on this camera just so that it's easier for... Oh, thank you. So I'm Mikey, we've got Malvina, we've got Chris, we've got Holly. We're talking about... Holly's just said... We in our day-to-day lives, we're kind of stuck in this system. It's hard to sort of think outside the box, to think about these things, to actually think how we could do things differently. Is that fair to say? Jack, have you got a view on this?
Yes, I completely agree. I think it's the climate emergency is such a big issue, and I think people are encouraged to think about what they can do in their lives, but that's not how, we need to be halving our carbon emissions by 2030 at least, if not more than that. And so I think the idea that we can do that by just taking quicker showers and that kind of thing, it's not going to work. We need systemic and structural change. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm glad about that because I like a long shower. Marina.
So I really like train travel, but train travel is so hard because I have to go to Barcelona in November, and I just looked at train travel. It's like for I don't know, like 30 hours, and it would cost me €280 just one way if I wanted to do this. So I'm thinking we should really, like, train companies in Europe. My wish is that in the future they innovate a little bit. A great example is here the Eurostar. So what they do is, for example, 4 weeks in advance, you can go on snap.eurostar.com and just get like £25 tickets from Brussels to London. Yes, and that's great because if you're flexible, you can just take, or you can also go Paris, London. So I that's my wish for the future, that train companies innovate, work together better, and offer some stuff, so that it becomes an alternative to flights.
Okay, so the train travel is more expensive. What you're paying for is that, I guess, the sense of oh, you're going to come around here. Okay,
Sounds like an interesting debate.
So we're talking about, in a way, it's about the system. Is a system geared against us? We can only. I don't know what the record shortest shower time is, but it's not going to be enough, basically. Malvina wants to travel to Barcelona by train. It's costing €280. We need system change, I think is what you're saying, that at least the travel system and the showering system needs to change. Maybe websites as well. Let me just get your name. What's your name?
I'm Arthur.
Arthur, Malvina, Jack, and Chris, and Holly. Go.
So one of the reasons planes are so cheap is because the fuel that planes use is not taxed. So we are subsidising a form of transport which is convenient, but is very, very, very damaging. And in Europe, when there are options, we should be doing things to incentivise the things that allow people from future generations to enjoy the same quality of life that we would like to enjoy, I feel. This feels fair and kind of equitable, and I think this is the whole thing, it's structural, and you do need to see these changes here. And when you talk about just having a shorter shower, I think that's problematic because it pushes all this work onto individuals, and in many cases that's not going to have that much of an impact because generally we do not have much in the way of literacy around what is effective at all. And I think that's something that we could basically work on as a community to do something in this field.
Okay, so where do we want to go with this? Do we want to talk about subsidising trains? Do we want to talk about how we can work together? I mean, it's kind of up to you. Where do you want to go with this? Any thoughts? Arthur, have you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is Mozfest, so we're about technology.
Yeah.
We're about open data. So should we, should we kind of talk about...
Is there a technological solution to this?
Is tech a solution, firstly?
Okay.
How much of a solution? And what kind of technology is in your opinion, going to have the most impact?
Any ideas off the bat just to get the ball rolling?
I'd like to see what your thoughts are.
Okay, Malvina maybe has got one,
So just to come back to Eurostar, it is actually a technology solution. They are counting the people if they have space available. They made this app. People can go on the app, and I think yeah, we can innovate here. We can make apps to see to distribute resources in a good way.
Okay, so you can have a carbon saving apps. Holly, let me just bring Holly because you've not said much for a while.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I work for a youth charity. So my sort of take on it is, again, it's probably more sort of education focused than technology focused, just because that's my background. But I do think that technology plays a massive part in education, and so there's a way that we can sort of bring learning and literacy to the world through technology, through things like social media platforms, getting them involved in kind of creating this sort of environmentally literate generation of people, and using technology that way, as well as obviously the stuff we're talking about with Eurosat, the stuff that sort of you're talking about. There's technology.
Could you have some kind of carbon Fitbit where you sort of like, you clock up your carbon and you try and, minimise it, I suppose, unless you want to be blinging and be like maximally polluting, which is also an option as well. I mean, Jack, you had something to say.
I was going to say, I think that's a really good point. There's a phrase, I can't remember who came up with it, but you can't manage what you can't measure. And so if you don't actually know, so even for an event like Peter Drucker, thank you very much.
Peter Drucker, you can't manage what you can't measure.
Can't manage what you can't measure. Yeah. And so even with the case of something like Mozfest, if Mozfest is measuring per attendance carbon footprint, then it can try in subsequent years to reduce that. So there's all sorts of ways they might do that, depending on the food they're serving, depending on the milk's coming with the coffee, that kind of thing. So there's all sorts of ways, but you initially, the first thing you need to know is those numbers, because otherwise we don't know what we're trying to do. So.
Okay, I mean, is it all about numbers? We've got a new face to the table. We have got Malvina, we've got Arthur, we've got Jack, we've got Chris, we've got Holly. What's your name?
Brian.
Brian, and I'm Mikey. At the moment we're sort of, it's kind of Arthur's suggestion. Can technology actually be the solution rather than the gobbler of carbon emissions? Not gobbler, that's the... Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Have you got any views on this side?
Well, just to point out that I do a lot of work with activists, and they were quick to point out that this is an argument that the petrochemical industry uses. Which is, once they've sort of got past it's not our problem, and it becomes we're developing new technology in order to solve these problems that indeed they have created or have helped created. But even though we're sort of asking ourselves, is technology, or can we use technology to solve the problem, they're also using that same narrative to say that they have some really clever technology that is going to help. Like, you'll see it in around the electric cars.
I mean, is that a bad thing, though, for them to be developing this?
Well, it's just, how does this narrative change or differentiate from their own narrative for the petrochemical industry?
Okay, so technology, sometimes it can be a bit of a kind of like a hiding place. I think is what you're saying.
With fossil fuel companies in particular, they have. If there is some technology which has been developed, if you're allocating 0.0005% of your budget to this instead of this new stuff which is supposed to be compatible with like humans in future, then I kind of feel like that should be much more visible, and I think it's not really fair for say large fossil fuel companies saying, hey, we're working on this stuff. And then it's like, but we're spending 99% of other ones drilling up more oil.
So it's a bit of a contrived message in a way.
It's not about technology. Technology is a tool in this, but in many cases there's policy that you need to talk about, which is why it's good to have some policy people here as well.
In a way, that goes back to Jack's point. It's about what you can measure, because you're not measuring how much of a budget is actually going to post-carbon fuels, for example. I just want to say, guys, if you want to come and join in on this, you're very welcome to. There's a climate emergency going on. Is technology the answer, or is it just purely gobbling up the units of electricity as we are right here, although it is battery-powered, for whatever that means? So, I don't know, where do we want to go with that? I mean, are you satisfied, Arthur, with some of these technological...
It's really interesting, because the ideas that are coming to mind are just kind of, they seem to be kind of self-evident. You talk to loads of people about this, and some people will say, that technology alone is going to solve the problems. We're going to invent electric airplanes. We're going to have fusion power, and that's going to solve our problems. But if you talk to people who've worked in these kind of areas for a while, you'll understand that these are really... These are kind of like technologies which you might bet on like betting on winning the lottery.
Right.
They're amazing, some people get them occasionally, but really it's a 1 in a 60 million chance of actually winning it. And we're betting our future.
So you're saying like nuclear fusion is like a 1 in 60 million chance that we'll get that right, and
within the time frame we need by 2030.
Right. Okay.
So basically, we've all kind of come to the idea that it's not just technology, it's policy, it's our own personal choices.
Yeah.
It's about measuring what is most important and calling out the organizations that are not really living to their word. So I'm really...
Have you got any organisations in mind that are not living to their words?
I mean, we've already had them mentioned here, ExxonMobil.
Yeah.
I'm going to call out names here because I think it's important. ExxonMobil, they're continuing to invest into oil pipelines. And the amount of investment they put into real renewable projects or alternative technologies, very minimal, but they make a big deal out of it.
Okay.
So what Mozilla can do, we can publicize information about this. That's kind of a great thing.
A Mozfest, okay?
Forest, a plant. Okay, a load of us have had to come here.
Yeah.
Some of us have flown here because that's the easiest and the most effective way to travel across large distances. If we had something like a Mozfest, we planted trees to account for the emissions from people coming here.
Yeah.
This feels like a positive way to actually acknowledge this and make sure that we can keep doing it, because we had someone in a session for the Firefox Eco Mode. He said, I'm literally younger than Facebook and I'm going to have to live through this. And it feels like we should be thinking about young people as much as anyone else here. And like there are absolutely steps we can do. There are loads of things available to us right now. We don't need to wait for fusion for us to start doing the right thing.
I mean, do we need to fly here? Are there other ways of having a festival that don't involve flying?
Yeah, do we have to be in the same space? Is it actually something that we can do virtually as sort of these kind of technologies are developing and are, this is where our young people are anyway, it's where we meet each other anyway on a day-to-day basis, so why not sort of try and expand sort of
So could you have a
digitally?
virtual reality festival? Could you have a virtual, it would cut down on the food budget. Virtual reality festival, would you go to it if it was Mozfest was at an IP address rather than in London? Would you come to it?
Maybe. It would be maybe probably more accessible, as in people might not be able, like in a physical location, people might not be able to move. Like for example, last year at for Mozfest, I was like in my parents' place in France. I couldn't really, like if it was on the internet, I might have been able to just connect to it, connect to an IP and right. But then on the other hand, you can also lose part of the social aspect of the event. You can't really.
So you think the social aspect is actually still important, and that's worth the plane travel?
Yeah, definitely. I go to that kind of events to talk to people, to discover what they like to do, what is important to them in this digital world that we live in.
Okay. Come and grab a seat if you want. I know you're in the queue for the coffee, but it's an important point. Final thought, Holly.
Sorry, I have to go, but I just think it's really interesting. I think the fact that we're having conversations is important,
Yeah.
20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, we weren't talking about it. But the more we talk about it, the more we can do. So I think.
Okay, so we are making a bit of progress, if not fast enough.
Talking and stop ignoring.
Would you come to a virtual festival rather than a real festival?
I'd try. I'm not very good at actually using technology, ironically, but I would try.
Okay, so we make it more accessible in one way, but we make it a barrier in another way, because you need to be familiar with the technology if we make this all virtual. Plus, I have no idea how to do Talkaoke in a virtual space, but that's a challenge that maybe would actually save a bit of carbon in the end. Guys, come and get involved in this. Chris, what's your point?
I was going to say one thing that's important is having people who understand how to make it easy to do the right thing. I know that behind me we have one of the world's experts in choice architecture and behavior change, Dan Lockton, who's been talking about this for a very, very long time. And he might join us if he comes around. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, well, I mean, the whole point of this is a voluntary thing.
We have so much expertise available to here. That's the thing. So there is I think making it easy to do the right thing is something we don't invest so much time in.
Yeah.
And we've made a deliberate decision, or we've made a decision not to kind of prioritize understanding how to use like remote tools over something else. Like if we provide it and if we value this stuff, then it becomes easier to work with work remotely without needing to travel.
So you've got to make the right choice, the easy choice as well. I mean, is that the case? We talked about the trains. Is it the case with the trains over the planes?
That is, it's partly a policy thing with the trains.
Yeah.
You know, the technology is pretty well developed. In fact, in some ways, the reason why it's so expensive is because the trains are quite heavy, because they've got lots of safety features in them.
Right.
In fact, trains are really over-engineered.
Right.
And the reason why is because there have been some train incidents, and they've created a lot of kind of attention in the media. So train manufacturers have been forced to add loads of safety features.
Yeah.
So the trains are quite heavy, and it takes more fuel to move them, and they have to have more maintenance. So that's part of the reason. And they don't have subsidies. You know, they still have to pay the full amount for all the electricity they use. They don't get, 0% tax on their fuel.
Yeah.
So that's a policy thing. But on an individual level, going to move the debate slightly. We're all individuals,
what we want
right?
with Talkaoke, really. We want it to keep shifting, so we never really get a kind of finger on it. But anyway, Arthur, go on. Yeah.
We're here. We're kind of grassroots people, aren't we? You know, we like open source.
I like to think of myself like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we like to do things ourselves if we can. I think. Maybe if you've got a different way of kind of approaching problems, then
So we like to solve the problems as guys. Come and sit down, especially because we've got someone taking a photo. It looks better if we've got more people around the table. You two could sit here and it would look like a much better shot. Look, so we brought the cameraman. Come on, have a seat. Come on, you can do it. Just look interested. We've got Brian wants to say something.
Well, I was just that's a really interesting point, because you're almost getting into identity there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are you the sort of person who would go to Mozfest? You know what I mean? Yes, I am that sort of person.
Yeah.
No. I think it's.
Yeah.
No. I think it's. I think it's a good point that you raised, because you're identifying with a crowd of people who consider themselves. Yes, I do want to confront these issues. I want to talk about them with other people.
Yeah.
But that borders on identity, right? In terms of how. So, for example, recently, in the last 2 years, I've become a runner. And before then, you would have said, "Do you run?" And I think I don't even understand running. Just don't, And somehow something has changed, right? Parkrun is the answer, right? But it's got me into running, and now I see myself as a runner. And of course, your outlook completely changes. So, how can we get other people, or how can we co-opt other people, or I don't know what the right verb is.
So have this kind of problem solving, this kind of like hacking grassroots, let's get together and solve this problem, kind of like we're part. How do we expand that?
Right. How do I see myself as a problem solver when I didn't a year ago?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, we need to invite a wider group of people to be not part of the problem or solution, but part of the group that helps solve the problems. We've got a couple of new faces. Thanks for coming to sit down. We've got the photo now, so don't feel obliged. We got Arthur, we got Jack. What's your name?
Jay.
And
Georgia.
And Jack's off. Give us a final thought before you go. Hit us with some wisdom.
I was going to say, I think a really interesting intersectional issue that we're facing, so talking about policy and talking about, grassroots activism, is that we have a deeply, in this country at least, and certainly in Canada with their recent election, we have deeply disproportionate electoral systems, which I think is one of the problems we face, because you have a situation where parties that have a lot of popular support don't necessarily get people elected. And obviously, in some ways, we might think that's good, depending on which party you're talking about, but I'm a Green Party member, and the Green Party do very well on the mass numbers, but that doesn't necessarily translate to anyone actually getting elected, and that's what just happened in Canada as well.
Okay.
So so I think we need to.
We need a bit of an update of the political system.
Yeah, and that's where technology is a huge part of that, because I think you've got the fact of of informing people so that people, the electorate, are properly informed. Then you've got all the other ways that democracy can be improved through technology. So you look at My Society, all of the tools they've built, Write to Them, Map It, and these amazing things that allow you to contact your MP and contact your councillors and do all these things and actually get this grassroots activism going somewhere politically, which I think is really important. But,
okay, so in a way we need an update on politics to actually push forward some of these ideas. Come and join the conversation. We're talking about, it started with the climate emergency, but now we're sort of moving on to how can come and have a seat.
Yeah, okay.
That one's still warm. What's your name?
My name is Kara.
Kara.
Yes.
We have got Arthur, we have got, what was it again?
Jay.
And? Georgia, sorry, I've got so much in the flow. And this is Brian, my name's Mikey. At the moment we're sort of talking about can technology actually solve some of these big environmental issues? Is it about having as Arthur says, the kind of mindset of a problem solver, of a kind of, for want of a better word, a kind of hacker that could actually solve problems? Is it about being part of this in-group? Is it about changing a political system where some of this technology can actually, inform us better? So, yeah. I don't know what that rumbling sound is, but...
One point I'll make. So something that this is related to the talk I did this morning on death and open source was a way to connect this is the idea that we are holding so much information, like we create all this information and a lot of people abandon it, right? So that means that this data still exists somewhere, which means we're kind of like creating trash, and that all kind of is contributing to those systems like existing in like servers and that kind of stuff, right? Which has a direct correlation to like that as a pollution, right? Because if we're thinking about like servers and how much energy it takes and all that kind of stuff, that has a connection to our, climate.
All this data, which might be used or may not ever be used, but we're just amassing all this data that's just sitting in these server farms gobbling up electricity. I mean, what's that all about? We've got a new face to say. What's your name?
David,
we've got Arthur, we've got Cara, we've got Jay, and Georgia, and Brian, and Mikey. And we're sort of talking about, can technology solve some of these, these problems with climate change, carbon emissions, or is it actually part of the problem when it comes to things like huge data centers just holding pointless data? So that's what we're talking about at the moment. Do we see technology as a driver for change or as the problem in itself, or a bit of both? Jay?
I think it's more about that we don't actually share our technology. For example, we all use our own technology. We have our own fridges, consuming, each house has its own fridge, each house has its own TV, each house has its own kitchen technology, and we don't actually live in any sense of community anymore. And whereas if we actually did it in a sense of community...
Have you ever lived in a flat shed, Jay?
I have.
I mean, what's a kitchen going to look like?
No, not just a kitchen, but all of our access to technology. It could be more shared in life, I think.
Okay. Could we share our technology more?
I think that this is a really interesting conversation around public spaces as well, right? Like if we thought about what public space looked like and thought about more ways that we are sharing in those spaces with technology and space in general, like maybe we would have less of a desire to have our own things all the time because we knew that there are other spaces that we can share and hold those things that we can have access to. Yeah, and I think because I think that probably goes in hand, right? Like there are less public spaces because there's less trust, or there's less trust because there are less public spaces, and like that dichotomy. And I think that's really interesting.
Maker spaces now. There's more shared access with the maker spaces to use that technology rather than everyone having their own. So,
bring David in on this. Have you got any views on this?
Yeah, I think partly is driver because I just graduated learning data science. So if it all depends on the user, the people who use the technology. So we have a really, I'm from China, by the way. We have really famous philosophy saying a knife. If someone uses a knife to cut the food, cut the meat, cut the vegetable, that's for good. But people also can use the knife to kill people. So it depends on the people who use the technology. Like some people want to know how much percent, like one fly, how much waste he was going to make it. If he know the number figure, he will try to reduce to like a public transportation or cycling. So this is for good. But also people who don't care, or they don't care the technology existing. So I think partly in my opinion, technology is a driver if people can use it intelligently or smart.
Well, I mean, I think Martha's point a bit earlier on was how do we actually bring people into this, we're here in Mozfest and we like to think that we're on the right side, that we're kind of, trying to solve the problems, but how do we bring a wider group of people to actually be interested in solving problems? How does that actually happen? How do we get, a wider conversation really in the public, this sense of public to expand some of these discussions to a wider audience?
Yeah, I think this. I just came from a session that talked about the stalker state, and this is more about like government and how things are used with an intent to harm. But I think there's another story there around like starting with community and starting people understanding like how we think of ourselves as a part of a community and how we continue to create those spaces for those conversations to happen, and that we continue to connect with each other and build that information so that we are like continuously like building things together and in a community-based way. So we're not thinking like, oh, we're like saviors, we need to come and like fix a problem, but we haven't talked with community enough about the problems in a real like everyday direct way.
So I mean, I think there's a real danger that we're just telling people what to do rather than involving them in the decision making. Anything on this side, Georgia? You not said much?
Right. With the sort of whole community, I know you touched upon like maker spaces, but with the amount of like technological waste and with the sort of lack of like right to repair that we've got going on, it'd be great if maybe like the maker spaces could be opened up where you would have more community hubs. Oh no, my microwave's broken, don't worry, come down here, speak to an expert. We have the tools, we have the expertise, or if you don't have the skills, we can point you in the right direction so you don't have to buy necessarily, I don't know, whatever the piece of technology is. Again, I know they did with the Envirophone a little bit, but what I found with that and why I haven't got myself, it was very expensive. That needs to sort of come down to everyone on the level where everyone kind of yes, definitely. Like
something I've been involved with is the Library of Things, right? So the idea that why buy when you can borrow, right? But why I was so interested in it was that in terms of the conversations that it facilitated. So I live not far from here actually, in southeast London, and we still are trying to get a Library of Things up and running, and but I'm aware that within the little area that I live in, there are groups of people who just never come into contact with each other just because of how you go to work, where you might be working, or who you might be connected with, or who lives on the same street. So we're involved in things like street parties, to just get people on the same street talking to each other and stuff like that. But the idea behind Library of Things, in terms of getting people from different classes, if I'm allowed to say that word, or from different slices is maybe a better word, in terms of the community talking to each other. And the only way to do that is to create a space where that can happen. As in, you can't force people to do that, you know what I mean? But you can create an environment where people can step into that if they wish,
What is stopping people from like lending each other a microwave or lawnmower? What is actually stopping people from doing that?
It's the government. Like seriously, there are a lot of people that create farms, create spaces, and they continuously get shut down because they're creating spaces that are like not they're not like condoned. Like when there are a lot of laws in the United States around like congregating, and it just continuously disallows people to kind of create those spaces on their own. You can get like fined, and you can get it's just like all these things that keep you from doing things that are actually like good for a community. It's really ridiculous. So I really hope that kinds of things continue to happen, that aren't like police state controlled.
So the government can actually stop people from sharing things? Is it like that in China? Do the government stop people from sharing?
I don't know, but like if they against the policy, it might shut down. But the smart way, we would say you need to calculate. Like for example, if you open too much farm, actually it's not beneficial when you calculate. I know it's really good, but if you calculate in terms of economic sense, it doesn't really good in the long run. You need to reduce and then to make the use of the already have. So there's the reasonable number of the thing you go on. And again, I would say technology is a tool for people to use it. In the end,
can they share the tools? This is the question really. Can they actually share the tools rather than each have their own tool?
I think if from the benefits of the society or community, you should share. Like in technology, we have the open source. Everyone can use that thing and to develop it, to contribute, which is as long as you have the documentation or policy about how do you share, how do you use it, that would be good. Because yeah.
Okay, so open source. Oh, Cara gives the final thought before you.
Oh yeah, open source is the best thing. Open source for the win.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
What was the session you were at earlier on?
So this morning I did an ofrenda to tech ghosts. You can go check it out in the queering space on the 6th floor. And it was focused on open source and death. So thinking about like when we build something, thinking about the end so that we, one, don't create pollution, but we also think about like how those things can continue on without us. So we're not burned out as maintainers, but also people depend on things you build and they also create like emotional connection to things you build. So just thinking about all those things and being able to answer questions like how might we, think about this more in like practices around what we do and how we consider like that and in the concept of death.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a big question.
Yeah, I know, but we can see some of that on the 6th floor even now. Okay, great, good stuff. Okay, your final thought, David?
Final thought is just actually the technology, if you don't treat it as a tool, if you think technology is the solution to all, I think that would be wrong. But if you consider that as a tool and also when technology is developed by human, then humans should be educated more how to use that tool in order to make the technology not a problem creation. How to say, like when you
human-centered technological.
Yeah, you need to be first place a human to use technology, not technology to dominate the human.
Okay. It's about the position of technology with humans. Okay, so where are we going from this? I feel like now there's a general movement to actually get up and go to more interesting things, and unbelievably, but we can keep this conversation going. It's kind of up to you. It's a free-form thing. We're talking about sharing technology and open source as well. Is it
in the climate emergency? That's what we need to bring it back to.
Yeah, but I mean, is there a relationship between open source technology and the climate emergency? Is open source in itself?
But it's a mindset that people have to change themselves. For example, people want to be heard about their environmental issues, but if nobody's actually listening or they don't get valued, then they're not going to bother contributing. So how do you asked earlier, how do you get people involved? They have to be respected that they can bring something to the table. And secondly, I think it is an emergency and we have to continue this conversation. So
well, I mean, I'm certainly into continuing the conversation.
Sorry, I was just a shout out to anybody here. Did anybody hear about the Extinction Rebellion? This happened a few weeks ago. Did anyone, hands up if anyone went along to the Extinction Rebellion? Or they were influenced by it? They ended up stuck in traffic. Yeah. Okay. So we've already got some kind of grassroots communities which are already influencing our debate around the climate emergency.
Are they doing anything to sort of... Okay, they're doing a great job to tell people that's what's going on.
There is no problem.
What about your point earlier on about the solutions and this grassroots? Okay, grassroots activism and campaigning to let people know that it's an emergency. But what are the sort of answers to that?
Right, so that's a really good point. What are the answers? Because if you go and you talk to some of the people who are involved in Extinction Rebellion, they'll say, and you say, okay, so climate emergency, what does that mean? What would you like the government to do? What they'll say is, oh, we want them to, we want them to be more active on climate justice, or we want them to take the climate emergency seriously. But then you go, what does that mean? And they'll go, we want them to take the climate emergency seriously. You know, we want them to care about global warming, do something about it. So what do you want them to do? They won't. They say, we don't know. It's just a platform for discussion. What we require is we need to have coordinated groups which tackle each.
Is there a vision and a plan?
Is there a vision and plan? I think it's up to Georgia.
I think that perhaps where Extinction Rebellion need to sort of coordinate with this is, for example, I know there's like a Centre for Climate Change and Mitigation Research in Cambridge, and they've been working on this for, I don't know, at least 40 years. Like just the one that I know of and went to a lecture in. But with that, if Extinction Rebellion or anyone who feels particularly strong, or not even feels particularly strong, like everybody, there's a climate emergency going on anyway, but if they don't know what to do, maybe some of these groups put out on, maybe it shouldn't be totally up to the groups to publish, maybe it should be coordination with governments or other people who would, governments, Extinction Rebellion, anyone who'd like to push this message forwards. They go, right, this is what we need to be doing on a governmental level, because they've already been told several times and have been in discussion for years. They sort of know what they should be doing. If they don't, just go back and look at the documents that have been prepared for you.
What would you like to see the government doing?
Well, if they're not doing... Oh, sorry. Okay. If they're not paying attention to the documents already prepared, if it is just, well, we've passed a bill and we aim to meet these targets by 2050, probably not. It just all seems a bit. Well, it's not concrete anyway. There needs to be something that can be pinned down, that they can measure year on year, not just carbon, just like the amount of waste. And then the thing where it gets to it is. It's great, we've got this climate emergency being talked about now, but what is not going to be talked about is how the whole capitalist consumerist companies, and I'm not trying to say, it's really bad. Some of the products they make are really good, it's great, but going back to the library, how are they going to deal with their decline in profits? The shareholders are not going to be happy. You'd have to redefine the business structure and the models for each product so the companies can transition to maintaining that stable level of economics, because unless that happens, no one's really going to deal with it. That's my opinion anyway.
So, for example, a lawnmower, if one street buys just one lawnmower, how's a lawnmower company going to survive? Or will it even be lawnmowers? Will it be sheep or goats? Brian, you had a point.
Yeah, it was just talking about Extinction Rebellion, really. I can think it wasn't that long ago where the phrase single-use plastic was not on my radar at all. I just had never really thought about what single-use plastic was, and now it's very much on my agenda. I used to walk into Tesco and get a £3 meal deal, and now I can't do it because everything is covered in plastic, and it offends me, right? So I somehow have sort of changed my perspective in a reasonably short period of time, and I think that's what Extinction Rebellion is all about. If you see the people involved, they're not necessarily who you might expect, right? In terms of there's quite a lot of pensioners involved, which I just think is the most fantastic thing I've ever seen, where you've got a much broader section, I think, of people sort of saying this isn't okay, and we're going to do something about it. I don't think we need a lumber Extinction Rebellion with having a plan. I don't think they need a plan. I don't think that's their bag. I think it's about exposure. I think it's about exposure because if you think, again, to use the petrochemical industry as an example, the lobbying money that industry has at their disposal is hundreds of millions of pounds a year in the UK alone, right? So that's what you're up against, but that doesn't change. As in, government policy isn't going to change unless every person in the UK is aware of the problems.
There's a culture change going on,
right?
And that culture change will actually lead to lawnmower companies changing their business model because the whole culture is changing. guys, come and join in. We can put in the order. Is that your final thought, Brian? Okay.
One thing, sorry, I'm going to have to head off as well.
I think it's been a good conversation so far.
Climate emergency, what does it mean? And how can Mozilla and all the people here be involved in that? So, about bringing back, from Extinction Rebellion back to, us here, what can we do about it? Well, my point is that, movements like Extinction Rebellion, there are other ones, Sunrise Movement, things before that, they're all about essentially creating a platform for a particular idea or a set of ideas to be acted upon, to become a reality. And there are things that really have come out of this. We talk about...
It's not buying meal deals anymore.
Exactly. But going back further in time, we've had the idea of a carbon footprint for a while. Are you familiar with the idea of carbon footprint? Where did that come from? Think about it. The idea of putting together, a footprint with the idea of carbon emissions, it's quite a leap of imagination. That came from kind of campaign in the early 2000s. Right. So these previous movements, although we don't remember them,
they've got their kind of cultural imprint into their...
I mean, you might remember Inconvenient Truth, but we don't talk about that so much anymore. It's still imprinted into our psyche with terms that have come from that. So Extinction Rebellion, the movement, I hope it won't, but it might become, it might fade in our memory, but it will.
But will the term, I suppose, climate emergency be around?
It will be around. But what's more, the things that we develop in each of the communities where we bring that idea in will survive. So as people who work with data, with open access to data, it's so important that we create something that will be remembered, and it won't just become, as the lady who was sitting in the seat just before, Cara, sorry. You're very good with names, I have to say.
Part of the job.
So as Cara was saying, it shouldn't just become waste, it needs to become something treasured. So as activists here, I'd say that we are all part of, a movement which can, if you believe in it, use those ideas of climate emergency to create something. So I myself am working on a project to track carbon footprints on a personal level. It's been done on national levels, it's been done on global levels, but it hasn't really been done on a personal level in real time.
Right.
And that
so it's like a carbon Fitbit in a way.
Exactly, yeah. But you don't need to buy a Fitbit. You just use the technology you already have. Okay. So if you'd like to find out more about that, then do come along. I'd really love I've got a
place where you're talking about.
Yeah, I've got a workshop tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Up just over there, level 902.
Just at the emerging sessions.
In the emerging sessions, and the title is "Tracking Your Carbon Footprint in Real Time Using Open Data." So if you'd like to find out more about that, you'd like to become part of it, then do come along. And everybody is welcome.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. I may well be there. We got a new face to the table. What's your name?
Hi, it's Oscar.
Oscar, we got Arthur, we got Jay, we got Georgia. Is that your final thought?
That's my final thought. I have to get into a blue t-shirt and.
You've got to get what?
I've got to get into a blue t-shirt and volunteer.
So you're part of the army, the Mozilla army.
All right. Yes.
Okay, so at the moment we started off with climate emergency, and then we started talking about. Okay, how can technology is technology like a kind of gobbler of energy and a kind of emitter of carbon, or is it a way to solve the problems? Probably a bit of both. And then we've been talking about that for the last, 20, 30 minutes. Jay?
I do think that technology can help by spreading information, because if we're more informed, we can make better choices, we can share ideas, and so I think technology will help fix the environment if we don't overuse it. But this information, for example, a company doesn't have to act with morality. Its idea is its profit. And so when we were talking earlier about the lawnmower made not being sold, well, the company that's going to be selling the lawnmowers will say, well, no, hold on a second, I'm not selling things. What can I do as a company to make sure my profits still stay up there? So if you look at all these oil companies, they use lobby groups, and therefore their information, they get sold in the climate denial, etc., all that point. But not many people will know that information. So sharing the information, that this is going on for a start, the dark money and all that, that's key to actually changing perception. But also sharing information, like you said, of a real-time carbon footprint. Information is key to fixing this problem.
And also information about who's got the lawnmower.
Exactly. And is it rented out on that Sunday when you want to do your lawn on that Sunday? So.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know, Oscar, if you've got enough there to comment at this point. Do you feel like you're at the back of the queue, so come and join in this conversation. And we're talking, can technology solve the climate crisis or just make it worse? Okay, come and listen on the table. Oscar, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm an optimist on this one. So I think technology.
Techno-optimist.
Am I techno head?
Techno-optimist.
Techno-optimist, yeah, I think I am. And obviously it's a double-edged sword. Technology can destroy us, technology can enlighten us, can save the planet. But I think, now with this Extinction Rebellion coming to, on the streets and saying...
Are they using enough technology?
No, maybe, I don't know how much technology they use, but I think there is a positive thing saying, okay, you have to be more transparent. How are you using technology? What is the real problem right now? That's why I've mentioned them. Yeah. So I think if technology is in hands of people, I think that's a good thing.
Funny enough, earlier on in the previous conversation when we were over here, people talked about the transparency of and it's also about how to understand these huge amounts of data, because it's just all numbers and stuff, so it needs to be made more understandable to human beings.
Data to information, that's from data. It has to be. Yeah. People won't see the data; they'll see the information or take it on board. Yeah. So
maybe technology's got a role to play there, is actually help us to understand the information, not just produce more and more data, which sits in the data farms. Georgia, have you got a view?
Sort of on this point. It's sort of glances on it.
Sometimes that where you're just on the edge of your thinking, it becomes more interesting because it's half an idea that maybe Oscar could complete.
Because I think it was touched on earlier. Yeah. Was it with Cara,
yeah.
Cara, who was here earlier with the data. And the brief renewable almost servers. How can you choose where your electricity that's powering your servers comes from?
Yeah.
But I do think one thing that maybe tech companies, or maybe I don't know, maybe I haven't been looking in the right area, but it isn't strikingly obvious to me, is that it's not clearly obvious that every phone, laptop, whatever, has got so many, valuable resources in it. It's been mined, it's been... Yeah. It's got this whole carbon footprint to the process of creating the piece of technology, which is sometimes, immense. So, I couldn't give you statistics on it, but it's quite wasteful just to get the end product. But how... sorry, I get distracted really easy. Yeah. How can companies not just say they're carbon capturing and storage? How can they actually look at what they're doing? Are they being wasteful? Like going back to the repair thing, can you easily send it back to the company? Are they going to do an update in 2 months, which is going to completely obliterate your phone and make you buy a new one anyway? Or, or do you have to spend ages jailbreaking the thing because it's no longer fit for purpose just to try and see whether you can get it to work again? Or whatever it is. I don't know.
Once again, it's this kind of cultural question. Can we shift the culture of companies to make them more sustainable and think about
through buying practices?
Or the products lasting longer, or just something that makes it. I don't know.
We've got a couple of new faces to the table. So we've got Georgia, we've got Jay, we've got Oscar and Mikey. What's your name?
Sonia.
And welcome. And anyone else that wants to come and sit down. We're talking about, can technology save the planet, or will it just simply, this is Mozfest, will it just simply fuck it up? Do you know what I mean? And is it down to the companies? Can we actually, we've been talking a lot about Extinction Rebellion, and it turns out that one of the things that people feel that it's doing is actually changing the culture of how we see sustainability. That they're changing the actual paradigm by making it more normal to care of. When all these pensioners come out and get arrested for blocking the streets, it makes it a bit more normal to be concerned about the climate. So that's what we're talking about here. Any views on this side, Sonia, Anne, or are you just going to listen in?
A few moments.
Okay, take your time. Yeah.
So I've got a question to you guys. Do you think Extinction Rebellion is a good thing, or a bad thing, or neutral, or both?
What do you think, Oscar? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think I said earlier that it's a good thing, but I don't want to impose my own. I am a little bit of a maybe conspiracy theorist, and I think if people are going out there and demanding the truth, there is something to be revealed, and I think everyone now knows that politicians lie, and the government structure is not necessarily for the best of our service to humanity, really. Maybe it's a lobby of people who are changing laws.
Something's going to come with all this campaigning. Something's going to come out that the politicians have been cheating us on the environment. Do you trust politicians in this, Tanya? Do you trust them?
Oh, not really.
No? Do you think they've been trying to cover stuff up?
I don't know if it's so I don't know, with anything I see or know, I mean, you can never know anything in its full capacity. So I try not to use binary thinking, like yes, no, and all this black and white, because there's so much stuff I just don't know. Right. Because media can only tell me so much, and obviously that's all a bit elusive as well. So how can I know? I don't even know what I know.
So in a way, you're in a kind of sea of uncertainty.
Yeah, like, and completely no knowledge. It's like, what is going on?
Isn't it better though, Sonia, sometimes to be a bit more black and white, so at least you can kind of get on the streets and get angry, even if it is a bit uncertain?
Maybe. I'm not to say. I think it's because I'm not an activist by nature. I'm happy. Like, it's great that it's going on. Like, for me, Extinction Rebellion, I haven't followed it at all. I'm interested in ecology, obviously, but I look at things from a different point of view with my own things. I always look at things from the non-human point of views. I'm always interested in what things are from point of view from trees or flowers, animals.
What would trees and flowers think of Extinction Rebellion?
They're just like, fuck this shit. You always think it's to do with you lot. It's just this is
human-centered.
It's just like, this is our planet anyway. So.
So would flowers and trees actually? Would they actually agree with the whole Extinction Rebellion thing? Would they think it's too human-centered? That it's all about humans trying to make a world for humans?
We're empowered now. People feel a little bit more empowered that they can protest on the street, and I think that's why it's an important thing that they're around at the moment. Because we actually have the power to change companies. We have the power to actually change it, even if we just change our ready meals. So that's what we can't forget, that we are empowered. We just have to own that.
So it's the humans that have got the power, so they're the ones that have to campaign. The trees are pretty much stuck in the ground, just doing their thing. Oscar?
Yeah, I mean, and of course we are on the street saying plant more flowers, so trees. Therefore, I think it's good.
Do trees want more trees, or do they want less trees? More space?
I'm pretty sure trees want more trees. Okay. Yeah, because they have underground mycelium brain network. So, and with that final thought.
Oh, you're off.
What time are you here until?
Well, it depends. If we need people around the table. We've got a new face here, though.
Oh, hi. Mika.
Mika?
Yes.
And we've got, what's your name?
Nick.
Nick. I mean, do trees want more trees?
Do you want more trees?
Do trees? I mean, that's what. Yeah.
One of the ways that technology is hopefully to get more trees planted is recently a lot of the top YouTubers have been signing up to the Arbor Day Foundation with a pledge to plant 20 million trees before 2020. So quite a lot of the social influencers through YouTube are now like trying to get people on that to plant the trees, and it might be just through donating money to the Arbor Day Foundation, but that will actually mean that technology is helping to plant more trees. So yeah, we do need more trees. We can't stop chopping them down. So that's a positive. That's in the last week. You'll find them all on there.
Yeah. Okay, but that wasn't my question really. It was Oscar asked if whether trees want more trees, because it's like humans wanting more humans. Go away. Anyway, so you've not said much. I mean, what do you think of all of this Extinction Rebellion we're talking about? Is it an effective thing? And there's a side question from the point of view of flowers. That was you, Sonia, wasn't it? About the tree. What do trees and flowers think? Do they care about these things? So have you got any views? What's your name?
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot.
Nick. Yeah. I do have some views. Yeah. Well, I went on the climate strike.
Yeah.
So and thankfully my company gave me the day off. So I don't know how much of a strike it was.
A company
but yeah.
that actually. We've talked a lot about companies kind of being resistant to some of these things, but this was a company that was actually encouraging.
Yeah. I think that and various other things have had a change in culture in my company, certainly. Like even we've had kind of changes in our policies and things around like setting targets for ourselves. We signed up to the Science-Based Targets Initiative recently, and to like having zero net carbon emissions in 5 years. So there's some. It's definitely, and that's been influenced primarily by those movements on the streets and the way it's shown that a lot of people in society in the UK are very concerned about this issue. Like even government kind of, I looked into like government kind of opinion things, and they said that you can see there's quite a big increase in the opinion of people saying, I'm really concerned about climate change, or I'm quite concerned about climate change.
So actually, there is a culture change happening under our very feet. It is happening. Companies are changing. There are being. Well, your company is anyway. What's your company? Can you say?
I can't. But
a company here. Come and join in. Are you okay? Why are you not going down the stairs? Is it because we're on the 9th floor? Okay, so anyway, so the culture change is happening in it. And Nick is saying it's down to things like Extinction Rebellion actually changing the culture. So is that just how it's going to be? And do you feel you're part of a changing culture, Sonia?
Changing culture. I mean, it's great to have the awareness, obviously being raised, or any activity, however small. I think it is amazing. I just wonder how much power, the change. I think there's so much change we actually need to do quite fast.
Yeah, so you think that we need more powerful players to be involved?
Yeah, it's like you need a bit of ExxonMobil, you need like the hardcore stuff. You need like people who work, like the tar sands and all the rest of it, which I singularly probably can't do much.
It's all right for some smaller company. I don't know what your company is, but the big companies need to have this culture shift as well. Maybe they're a bit slower. Did I hear final thoughts on this side?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, go on then, give us some final thoughts.
A few points you've touched on. Yes, technology, can we use it to fix it? Yes, definitely. I think with the right mindset, we can use technology for our advantage, not to disadvantage of the environment. And secondly, we're all empowered, so be right on yourselves. You're all sat at this table, so just keep on doing what you're doing. We are empowered. We can make the choices. Through our choices, we can govern. And if we do it collectively, we can change companies through that.
Have we got the kind of power that a company like ExxonMobil?
No, we're up against it because we don't have the vast sums of money behind us. But collectively, we have the notions, the ideas, and we can get together as a community to make these changes. And I think if we just hearing the ideas and actually putting them into our own way, but we can. I'm not saying you have to do everything, but like the gentleman before was talking about how he changed his plastic usage and the library of things and things like that. By sharing the ideas, we actually empower each other to take other ideas forward. And I think that's how we foster change and fix the environment issues that we have.
That's a great speech, Jay. Final thought?
I don't think it'll be as good as that, to be honest. Just final quick point would be to do with the differences between, changing the environmental structure between more small and medium enterprises rather than the big business. Because I'm guessing big business, they've probably got enough money to sort that out themselves. Fingers crossed. And it might make some shareholders grumpy, but maybe they could just bite the bullet for a year or two. With small to medium businesses, I think that perhaps I can't suggest legislation. nothing to do with me, but it would be really good if they could get a sort of green environmental grant which would help either established or you know, startups
What kind
or something.
of things would you want that money spent on to help those companies transition?
Okay, right, so I'm just trying to think of an example company. Actually, no, that's probably far too much detail, I won't go into it like that. Basically, it would just be just start off really simple, like just make sure, you know, maybe just do an audit of the business at the start. Just go, okay, what have you got, including the light bulbs, and like, what, you know, who's your energy supplier? What do you know? Does that come from a green source? Does that not come from a green source? Just look at all of those things that we can already deal with within the business, and then start pushing like further.
Yeah,
sort of green strategies on.
Change your light bulbs, change your
you know,
supplier.
if they're starting from nothing, then they might as well just invest in that technology straight away.
Yeah.
And for that I think they should be a definite reward, or if they can't afford to do that, if they, you know, there should be some reward. I don't know how it would be. I don't know how you'd set it up. I don't know how you'd policy it or decide who deserves what and who doesn't. Yeah, but you know, if there was an incentive that you could just switch, or you know,
less stick and more carrot in a way.
Yeah, and just changing the way, just changing the environment, the sort of corporation structure is set up in terms of that. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Well, we're here all weekend, so do come back. Well, you know, here and there, but I feel like this session has kind of almost like run out of gas, run out of coffee. It needs or run out of batteries, I should say, perhaps. We're just about to have our final thoughts. This is just about to finish. Have you got a point about environment? How can technology save the environment? Be quieter. Okay, it's a good one. All right, final thought.
I love that guy's sense of optimism, but I'm not that optimistic about technology. I think technology will probably be used in the way where it's almost like the afterthought. Shit, we fucked up. We better get that geoengineering.
So it's almost like reverse technology, like technology to clean up the mistakes.
The shit, and then it's just going to add another layer of problems, and then we'll just be like, fuck this, let's get on Elon Musk's rocket and get to Mars. Or either that or Bezos's one. It's like either.
Which one rocket would you rather be on, the Jeff Bezos or the Elon Musk rocket?
I think the Musk one. The outfit looked a bit more paramilitary, so I think it'd be a bit more prepared.
There might be more drugs on that.
And Grimes might be playing on in the background.
Which rocket would you rather be on, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos?
None of both.
Give us a final and initial thought. What do you think of all of this conversation? Do you feel optimistic or pessimistic?
I think that if we become all close friends with trees, we might solve the problem, and not technology, because technology is also, again, consuming a lot of energy, consuming a lot of resources, and also bringing people more no, I don't think technology helps to be more centered and more kind of a human positive actor in the world, and I think trees do.
Okay. Are you friends with any trees?
Of course. Yes.
How many trees have you got on your friends list?
A lot.
A whole forest. Okay.
Especially the Kirkers.
Okay. Final thought? Nick?
I'm not sure that technology is the solution. I think it's more a safety blanket that we cling to, and we need to consume less in general. But technology can be helpful if it's used right. But then if we use it for things like training AIs in the cloud that use up vast amounts of energy, or we don't kind of green those clouds or whatever, then we're going to be in trouble. But if we use it for things like 3D printing stuff locally rather than shipping it around the world, then maybe it can be helpful. So it's a useful tool, but it's not gonna save us. And if we use it like a safety blanket, then we're going to ignore the rest of the problems we've got.
I mean, is technology kind of almost wed to consumerism, and there's no way to separate those?
Maybe in our current capitalism.
That's maybe food for thought for the next session. Mika, have you got a final thought or initial thought?
Well, I think technology is definitely, if we use it right,
it's like we have to use technology. It's the only way. No, exactly. But I definitely feel sort of optimistic in a weird way. It feels like it's definitely culture change happening with all the movements going on, and I don't know how shallow that is and how much is just for like social media and how much is actually happening, but it's just the idea of getting people talking and getting people on the streets and getting having
going on the climate strike. That's certainly a culture change. It wouldn't happen in my organisation. We're just finishing, guys, so unless you want to come down and say a final thought, we're talking about how can technology save the planet, or will it just fuck it up? That's the question, right? Somewhere in between. Yeah, that's kind of the conclusion we've come to, so that's pretty much it. So thanks everyone for taking part. We'll be back maybe tomorrow. I don't know what time it is, maybe tomorrow, maybe later on. It's about 4, yeah, we might do another session if we don't annoy the emerging sessions too much. Thanks everyone for taking part.